if you're not defined by a vision of the future, you're left with the memories of the past. And people literally believe in their past more than they believe in their future. That's why they talk about their past more than they talk about their future. People romance their past and more in love with their past than they are in love with the future. And people who actually create amazing things in their life just were more in love with their future, and they kept it alive in their mind every day. And they, like feeding a plant or a garden, they're tending to that future every single day, and the delight that comes with it and the excitement that comes with it and the emotions that come with it cause them to literally change their brain and body over time to begin to look like the future has already happened. Now think about that. If there's evidence in your brain and body by thought alone, evidence that looks like you've already experienced your future, what does that mean? It's already happened. So relax, because it's going to find you, and it's going to come in a way that you least expect. That's the beauty behind this. If you could predict it, it's nothing new. It's got to surprise you. The brain learns by mistakes and surprises. So why not be surprised by an unknown coincidence or opportunity or synchronicity? And the moment you notice what you did inside of you that produced that effect outside of you, you're going to pay attention to what you did, and you're going to do it again, and you're going to believe less that you are the victim of your life. You know, someone or something is controlling your feelings and thoughts. So all of a sudden realizing your feelings and thoughts begin to create an outcome in your life. I think that experience then causes a human being to feel empowered. They start to believe in themselves more. And I think when we believe in ourselves, I think we believe in possibility. And when we believe in possibilities, I think we really believe in ourselves. And getting people to that point, to realize that nobody's excluded from this. You can't tell me any longer that you're too old to do this. We have brain scans of people in their 80s that will blow your mind, and
right.
they
you
could be
can
watching.
always focus on a future of yours. And by doing that, you can start healing yourself in all ways.
You can't tell me you're too sick to do this work.
Right.
I've seen super sick people with 50 brain tumors turn their life around. They have no brain tumors, 50 brain tumors.
Okay, the future.
You can't tell me that you had a turbulent past and you can't do this work. I've seen people that had the most abusive past that are the happiest people in the world.
Okay.
You can't even tell me that you've never meditated before, because many times the people who have never meditated have the most profound experience because they're not expecting anything. You can't tell me you're too overweight, you're too underweight. You can't tell me any of that. You can't tell me you're too this or too that. I've seen it in all shapes, all sizes, all colors, all ages. The stronger the emotion that we feel from some external event in our life, the more altered we feel inside of us as a result of that condition outside of us, the more we pay attention to the cause. And the brain narrows its focus on whatever it is that's sitting there, and it freezes an image and it takes a snapshot. And that's called a memory. So the higher the emotional quotient, the more fear, the more pain, the more shock, the more anger, whatever it is, the more we pay attention to the cause. And so then we create long-term memories that way. Now the challenge is that every time we think about that trauma, we're producing the same chemistry in the brain and body as if it was happening again. So some people, after an event like that, are literally re-experiencing it 100 times in one day. And this is a crazy thing, because what it does is it activates the survival gene. And when you're in survival, what you want to do is make sure that that doesn't happen again. So what you start to do unconsciously is you start to begin to forecast what you'll do if it happens again, right? And you start selecting a worst case scenario in your mind. And then you think, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And you start to even make it even more, you get more creative, right? And every time you do that, you start experiencing the emotion of that future based on the pain of your past, the fear of your past, the anxiety of your past, the depression of your past. And so the person's conditioning their brain and body into the past, and at the same time, they're literally bracing themselves for the worst case scenario in their life, because in survival, if you prepare for the worst, there's better chances of survival. And you could have 10 really great things go on in your life, and you could have one bad thing, and you keep focusing on that one bad thing because you got to be prepared for it happening again. So people unconsciously then spend their whole life looking around the corner, waiting for it to occur, and they're on guard. Now, that's not a conscious process. We now know that genes do not create disease. Less than 2% of the people on the planet are born with type 1 diabetes or sickle cell anemia or Tay-Sachs disease. The other 99 to 98% is created by lifestyle. You know, you can get two identical twins with the same genome. Why does one die at 57, the other one die at 85? Well, different environment, different perception of the environment, different behaviors, different choices. So then I wanted to see if people began to think differently, make different choices, do different things, create some new experiences, and feel and embrace different emotions. If that was new information coming into their nervous system, into the circulatory system, into their body, could we change the gene expression? Because we've witnessed people heal from cancer, and in a week we've seen people with MS heal in a few days. We've seen people with Hashimoto's syndrome change, rare genetic disorders change. We've seen all kinds of things change. But you just can't leave it up to, oh, that just changed. You have to close the gap between knowledge and experience. So the gene expression would be the piece that would say, wow, there were some changes. So all we wanted them to do is to do those specific things of thoughts, choices, behaviors, experiences, and emotions. And the other thing is that most people live by the same feelings every single day. You know, people wake up in the morning and your brain is a record of the past, so you wake up and you start thinking about your problems, and your problems are connected to certain people and things at certain times and places. The moment you start activating those circuits of memories related to the past experience and the environment, you're thinking in the past. Because every person, every thing, every place has a neurological network in your brain because you've experienced it. The end product of an experience is an emotion, so when you start thinking about your problems, you start feeling the emotions associated with them. You start feeling unhappy. So your thoughts are the vocabulary of your brain, your feelings are the vocabulary of your body. How you think and feel creates your state of being. So most people start their day, every single day, reaffirming their entire state of being in the familiar past.
Right.
Then they rush to the predictable future, right?
And this is probably 99.99% of humans in the world wake up
in doing that unconscious and habitually. So then they go through the same routine behaviors that they've been doing for the last 5 years. In their habitat is reinforcing their habits, and they're going through a series of unconscious choices, behaviors, experiences, and emotions. They do that for 10 years. They're on autopilot, and their body's dragging them into a predictable future based on what they did in the past, and they've, in a sense, lost their free will to a program, right? And their body's dragging them into that genetic destiny. We also know that when a person is in an environment that's remotely familiar to the event, even to the smallest measure where they can associate something, a small little trigger, they're going to have that same emotion consume them, literally consume them. So the problem is not that it's just in the brain, Brian. The problem is it's in the body as well, because it's the emotion that's conditioning the body subconsciously into the past. And now we're 5% conscious mind, 95% subconscious mind. So then that becomes a very profoundly distinct program for that person. So they lose interest in any other thing that is not related to the emotion they're experiencing. In fact, no new information can enter their nervous system that isn't equal to the emotion that they're experiencing because it's not relevant. Right. They're in survival. Survival says, be prepared for what's about ready to happen. Be prepared for the worst. Be ready. Don't let it get you this time. Know what you're going to do, and it's usually, a very primitive reaction. You teach them how to find the present moment. You teach them over time the tedium of returning back to the present moment and managing their attention, managing their energy. And you are literally training an animal that has really poor manners. The body's been just conditioned to be like a feral animal that's in survival, but when you start working with it and you keep settling it down, You're breaking that conditioning response, and you're telling it it's no longer the mind of anger, that you're the mind. And then this is where David starts slaying Goliath. This is where every time you start doing that, in the beginning it takes a lot of effort and a lot of energy. But if you keep practicing, we have so many brain scans to show so many people healing from anxiety and depression. You can't be anxious if you're in the present moment. You can't be depressed if you're in the present moment. You're in the present moment. You're not thinking about the future or the past, and you start managing that world. Then the body that's holding on to that emotion, when it finally gets trained, like training an animal to sit, if you're working with it, sooner or later, if you keep telling it and training it to sit, sooner or later it's going to acquiesce, sooner or later it's going to surrender to another mind. And when that happens, boom, there's this liberation of energy.